Despite it still being an hour before sunrise, Christopher Nelson was already on his feet. Moreover, the man had already managed to take a contrast shower and make himself a simple breakfast. He cooked scrambled eggs with meat and made a cup of strong coffee. Glancing at his watch every now and then, Christopher quickly ate his breakfast and opened his pocket notebook. There he had his work schedule written out for many days in advance. He had a rather intensive workload, which was due to the fact that 6 months ago, Christopher Nelson was appointed a mayor of a small town in northern Alabama. For a man who grew up in a simple working-class family, getting appointed for such an important position was actually the most significant event in his life and the first step in his promising career. Of course, Christopher's road to success was long and hard. Unfortunately, only a couple of the new mayor's acquaintances understood that he had to work extremely hard to get all that he had. Choosing to sacrifice his personal life, Christopher moved up in the career ladder and eventually became the person whom the locals called their patron and protector. Needless to say, it became Christopher's motivation, which pushed him to conquer new heights. Of course, some people were extremely envious of the new mayor and argued that he was too young and too inexperienced to hold such an important position. But Christopher, who had recently celebrated his 35th birthday, did not believe that his young age could prevent him from doing a great job at his new position. The determined young man knew that he was entrusted with an important job, which if done right would benefit each resident of the city in one way or another. Thus, Christopher got up early that day in order to go on an inspection of one of the private clinics that provided a wide range of medical services. The fact was that the new mayor started getting complaints of mistreatment of patients by some doctors and other medical staff of the clinic. However, Christopher was used to only trusting his own eyes, refusing to blindly believe rumors. For this very reason, the young mayor came up with the smart plan, aiming to confirm or refute the facts of abuse of office by certain employees. Christopher Nelson had a striking and memorable appearance, and thus he knew that without a makeover, his clever plan to learn the truth would be doomed. My face is looking at them from every other billboard in the city. They would definitely recognize me and treat me accordingly, demonstrating ostentatious decency and simulated hospitality, thought Christopher, looking at his reflection in the mirror. Meanwhile, the young mayor was trying to keep his intention to visit the aforementioned clinic secretly. Therefore, leaving home in the morning, Christopher told his wife that he had a business meeting with the head of a construction company, which was falling behind on the repair work in the city hall. "Okay, honey, I hope you'll make it in time for dinner. I'm making your favorite roast today," Tiffany muttered while basking in bed. They had been married for 5 years, but still couldn't get used to each other. This was partly due to the fact that more than anything else in the world, Tiffany loved luxury and wealth, while Christopher, on the contrary, appreciated modesty and moderation. Unfortunately, by the time the young people realized how different they were, it was already too late. Now, being married, it was still hard for them to accept the completely different life goals of one another. Moreover, Christopher felt at fault because he couldn't have children due to a disease suffered in childhood. That is why the young mayor endured all the antics of his eccentric wife, who loved to spend money right and left. Thoughts of being childless forever depressed Christopher, and deep down, he was actually dreaming of adopting a baby one day. Unfortunately, Tiffany did not share her husband's views of this issue, and always insisted that she wanted to enjoy her life instead. And now, having closed the door behind him, Christopher was sure that Tiffany would spend half the day in bed and the other half spending his money in expensive boutiques and beauty salons. Since the young mayor needed to do a complete makeover for his visit to the clinic, the first thing he did was go to a school friend who had worked as a makeup artist in the theater for several years. There, having reclined in an armchair in front of a mirror, Christopher was fascinated to watch how the skillful hands of Jeffrey White transformed him from a respectable young man into a homeless person of about 70, with a bushy beard and gray tangled-up hair. When the makeup was done, Jeffrey took out a set of worn clothes and battered shoes from the closet, Here you go. Now even your own mother wouldn't be able to recognize you," added the makeup artist, and involuntarily admired his own work. Christopher thanked his friend and, limping theatrically, headed for the exit. Fortunately, the clinic was located nearby, and the young mayor didn't have to kill half of a day to walk there, as he had no other means of transportation at his disposal. Once inside the medical facility, Christopher resolutely went to the front desk. There, squinting blindly, he began to move his lips silently in an attempt to read the names of the specialists working at the clinic. "It looks like you might have the wrong place. This is a private clinic, not a homeless shelter. You won't get any free food here," the nurse on duty noted with undisguised contempt. "Hello, ma'am. I'd just like to see a neurologist, or maybe a surgeon. I have back pain. It's been a couple of days now, and it won't go away," Christopher said, carefully distorting his voice. The nurse shrugged her shoulders indifferently in response, and went back to studying the documents on her table with the same squeamish expression on her face. Meanwhile, the mayor in disguise was adamant to get to the bottom of things, so he took matters into his own hands. Thus, Christopher went down the hall and started looking inside each office he came across. To the immense surprise of the disguised mayor, only one of them didn't have a doctor inside. The empty office belonged to a surgeon, Robert Perkins, and the reason why he wasn't treating patients at the time was unclear. Having cautiously opened the door, Christopher went inside and sat down on the couch with a resigned look on his face. He decided to wait for the doctor. Suddenly, the young mayor's attention was caught by a stack of medical histories with patient last names written on the folders. At first, Christopher thought that he must have been mistaken, and then he dared to pick up the top folder, and it made him feel very agitated. The thing was that the file had the name Tiffany Nelson written on it, who had been his wife for 5 years. But the worst part was that the file had a note attached to it, which read that the patient was about 2 months pregnant. Dear God, how is that possible? Is Tiffany really pregnant? This can't be happening. I can't have children, whispered Christopher, who was having a hard time pulling himself together. Feeling his head start spinning from too much shocking information, the mayor in disguise made an attempt to leave the surgeon's office. But once Christopher was at the door, it turned out that an equally perilous adventure awaited him. There, in the doorway, he came face to face with his wife, Tiffany, who was hugging the young doctor at the waist. Honey, who's that homeless man in your office? You said we'd be completely alone," Tiffany cooed in a languid voice. "Hold on there. It's just some homeless person who probably confused the clinic for a homeless shelter," Robert Perkins replied with a smile. Tiffany simply laughed out loud in response, which made her look like a wicked witch in Christopher's eyes. Sure, the woman didn't recognize her husband behind all the ragged clothes and the makeup, especially since he was supposed to be in a meeting in the city hall at the time. Unfortunately, this unexpected encounter took a great toll on Christopher. All the shock and the agitation caused the mayor to break a sweat, which made him feel as if his makeup had washed off his face. Having left the surgeon's office, Christopher sat down on a bench and tried to pull himself together. However, the mayor was breathing so heavily that he looked like a fish taken out of water. So that's what's going on. Not only has Tiffany been having an affair with the young surgeon, she's also carrying his child now, Christopher thought with tears in his eyes. This discovery turned out to be so shocking that the young mayor was ready to take off the hated wig and remove all the makeup right there and then. But then, remembering the true purpose of his visit, Christopher decided to play his part to the end and finish his inspection. Therefore, getting up from the bench, the mayor in disguise continued his journey through the halls of the clinic. At that point, Christopher was acting on some subconscious level and didn't stop until the head physician of the clinic personally took him out on the street. "Get away and don't come back, you vile tramp," Remember, if I ever see you again, you'll regret it." Stephen Barnes screamed at Christopher. Sure, the chief doctor couldn't have known that it was the city mayor who he'd just thrown out on the street. That same mayor who he recently shook hands with, promising to keep things in order in the clinic entrusted to him. On his way home, all Christopher could do was think about his situation and what he needed to do about it. The young mayor understood that he couldn't continue living with his cheating wife, and therefore only one option was spinning in his brain. "We'll get divorced, and I'll never have to see her again," Christopher whispered, and disregarding the people around him, he pulled off his wig and peeled off his false beard. Then he wiped off his makeup with a handkerchief and thus turned back into a man whom the whole city knew and respected. The first thing Christopher did when he got to his office was call his personal lawyer, who helped the young mayor draw up divorce papers. Next, Christopher Nelson contacted the head physician of the clinic, the one who threw him out onto the street not so long ago. In an official conversation, the young mayor simply and bluntly advised Stephen Barnes to find a new job. Christopher also didn't forget about the shameless surgeon, who was now in for some dramatic and no less shocking changes in his life. The young mayor didn't do it to take revenge on his offenders, but simply to restore justice, which is what the local residents repeatedly asked him to do. But the biggest surprise was waiting for Tiffany, who came home to find a brand new stroller waiting for her at the home. The envelope with divorce papers was pinned to it. Skimming quickly over the documents, Tiffany understood everything without words. And thus, pushing the hated stroller, she went to her unfortunate lover, who didn't feel all that confident and irresistible after losing his job. Passers-by looked at the mayor's ex-wife with surprise and shook their heads, as if suspecting that something was wrong. Meanwhile, only a few people knew that at that very moment, Christopher was talking to the state governor, who made him an offer he couldn't turn down. Having readily accepted the offer, Christopher felt like a new life was awaiting him.